right, welcome to another episode of the Up Your Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Lizette, and this is a destination podcast for female listener seeking to build the self esteem and maximize leadership at home and in life. Our goal, as usual, is to empower, equip and elevate women to enhance their confidence all over the world and inspire them to leverage their confidence as a key ingredient to reach their God given potential. Today, we are bringing you another guest with another insightful conversation. Today, our guest is Dr. Tiernan. I'm going to go ahead and read her bio before I bring her in. Dr. Carter Tiernan is an assistant dean of student affairs in the College of Engineering at the University of Texas at Arlington, Alta Mata. Since becoming assistant dean in 2007, Dr. Tiernan has helped bring more than $7 million of grant funding to the College of Engineering for engineering outreach, recruiting, retention, and scholarship. She led the college effort to increase the underrepresented population for students, staff, and engineering, including chairing the broadening participation in engineering committee and collaborating with university initiative. She managed the college level endowed scholarship process. She helped develop and teach the introduction to engineering for transfer student course for the college. She advised engineering student organization, assists with recruiting activity, and has conducted various school year outreach program, including the First Tech Challenge, part of the U.S. First Competition in Engineering Saturday. She has overseen the engineering summer program, including Girl Engineering, Entry to Engineering, the 6-week academic enrichment program, Text Prep, and other camp programs. She collaborated with the UT Arlington College Science on STEM outreach activity on a retention program for current and incoming STEM undergrad. She served on various CSC committee and lead initiative for the college for the CSC department for outreach and engineering education. She is part of CSC collaboration with the English department co-teaching a class on literacy analysis on Python programming. She also co-chaired the faculty steering committee for the university's 30 degree program and served on various university committee in that role. From 2025 to 2016, she was the director of college engineering and computer science summer camp, and now she managed the engineering summer program. In 2019, she was awarded the rank of associate professor on instruction in the computer science and engineering department, and in 2020, she was promoted to the rank of professor on instruction in CSC. Between 1992 and 2001, Dr. Tiernan worked for Project Seed, a national mathematics organization. She taught high school and college math to elementary school children, provided professional training for educators, and worked as part of management of projects in Dallas and nationally. Dr. Tiernan also taught part-time at UT Arlington. She came back to UTA as a full-time faculty member in the fall of 21 as a senior lecturer, undergrad advisor, and director of outreach in the computer science and engineering department. She received a BA in computer science from the University of Tennessee in 1983. She then joined Texas Instruments TI, where she worked on software design for electro-optic system and developed part of multi-agent artificial system to support single-seat fighter pilot. While at TI, Dr. Tiernan completed an MSCS at the University of Texas at Dallas and began her study of PhD toward her PhD at UTA. She finished her PhD while working as a faculty associate at UTA Automation and Robotic Research Institute. Welcome to the Up Your Confidence podcast. If you know anything about me, you know that I'm a knowledge broker. I mean, every time I find something that is good and working for me, I cannot wait to share it. And that's the case with Black Girl Vitamin. I have been dealing with a lot of personal health since 2 months ago. and I'm lacking my vitamin D. My cholesterol is high. My sleep is not well. So some of my joints are hurting me, and just I need my skin to look beautiful. And I have been taking some pills here and there. Then I stumbled upon black vitamin after I came back from one of my women conference. Then I love it. I order my pack. Within a week, I could see the difference. I could see my energy. I could see the glow. So I really want to tell you, get into black vitamin. I'm getting my vitamin D from them. I'm getting my collagen from them. I'm getting my cholesterol from them. I'm getting my CMO from them for energy and to boost my immune system. I could not be any happier. And again, woman owned, black brand. That's what we love on the Up Your Confidence podcast. So get into it. Use the link below here and get into Black Girl Vitamin. It's going to change your game. It's going to make you happy. It's going to make you glow. Thank you. Dr. Tiernan.
Hello, hello.
Thank you. We always like to start the podcast to talk, to share. I like to share how I meet people. And on this podcast, I think I have mentioned your name once or twice during one episode, as somebody that have inspired me a lot. So for everybody listening, Dr. Tiernan was my professor literally 20 years ago. I graduated from UT in 2004. So
Wow.
reading your bio was kind of like making me feel old and making me feel like a little girl at the same time. But I mentioned in a couple of episodes that you were the one inspired me to be in STEM. And when I see the word retention all over your bio, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. She definitely retained me while I was studying at UTA. But also, when I go on episode or different talk and people ask me like, why did I stay? I always say because I had somebody as a role model. That always pushed me and say you can do this. So I am ecstatic I was ecstatic when you say yes, but I hope I can contain myself on this episode. So everybody, it's almost like when your teacher show up, right? You better behave. So I am so being excited is an understatement, but I wanted to have you on the podcast because I know the work that you have been doing, and I found myself almost 20 years later kind of like doing the same work. So I was like, who better to invite on the podcast to talk about this, you know so tell us a little bit what you are up to lately, because I think your bio give us a good sense of your like the arc of your career. But what are you doing lately?
So lately, I can't say most. I have a job here at UTA where I get to do a lot of different things, which I love. Um, One of the things that I stay current on is engineering education and how to do a better job of educating students in our engineering things. One of the things about many of our STEM fields is that when you're at the university level, the faculty members came out of the university tradition, but they weren't actually taught how to teach. So they learned how to teach watching other people who taught them. And if
Mm.
they didn't necessarily have the greatest teachers, they may not be the greatest teachers. So, one of the things that I certainly do for myself, but try to do to assist my colleagues is try to educate myself on better ways to interact with students in the classroom to make students more successful. So I'm part of a couple of different activities we have going on in the College of Engineering. Um, I'll be I'll be mentoring briefly a group that's doing an online course called Inclusive STEM Teaching right now. That's a free online Coursera course. I've been through a couple of courses from the American and the Association of Colleges and Universities, AQ, um, that talk about different, again, methodologies in the classroom, fostering a sense of belonging in the classroom, being a better teacher. So that's one of the things I do for myself professionally. I'm actually on a steering committee for a small conference that'll be coming up in October, called Connected, CONECD. I am I listed a bunch of things in there that I do work on: scholarship processing and university studies committee. I'm on the university curriculum committee because I'm on the university studies group. I'm on the CSE curriculum committee because I have a grant currently where we're one of our proposed initiatives was to potentially set up a program. In other places, it's called a lot of different things, but you could call it multidisciplinary computing, interdisciplinary computing, CS plus X, where it's a computer science foundation with another content area. So maybe history, maybe biology, maybe art.
Yes. Okay.
So um, hopefully in the future that will come about. That the funding, we actually ended up only getting part of the funding we originally hoped to get. So we focused actually this year on starting a student success center in computer science. So I've been helping get that started. For this very first time, we've had a specific focused tutoring center for the computer science department. So we've got that up and running. Let's see. I teach the intro course. I am co-teaching an English class with a fantastic partner from English. There's a group between English and computer science that are looking at different ways we can work together. One piece of it was coming up with some classes that we could combine to maybe create a certificate. We're also looking more broadly at developing a gaming strand or track, or maybe a program later on. So there's a video game development group that's actually sort of pulling in people from art and people from music and people from English and people from CS. So all different people around the university who are looking at video games. I'm involved in a few other things, but those are probably the most current things.
That's a lot. I'm not surprised. That's a lot. But what I want to focus on is probably the outreach program, right? And from what I'm learning or what I've been aware of based on my interest lately is the compute. What is the data around how is diverse? From a girl perspective, from a woman perspective, from minority perspective, coming into the computer science field. Because I feel like from what I knew 20 years ago, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I feel like it has not increased from all the effort that people like you have been doing. How are you feeling?
It still isn't where it needs to be. I will say that there have been some increases. I'm looking up statistics, hopefully. There have been some increases. The interesting thing to me is actually when I was in computer science as an undergraduate, there were almost 30% women. And that is like the height that it's ever been. So I graduated in 83. But one of the reasons that was the height is because computer science was a very new field at that time. And there weren't a lot of preconceived notions about what it meant to do computer science or be a computer scientist. And then as there started to be this geek culture, and that actually drove down the percentages of women. Most computer science undergrad programs are hovering in the 20s, percentage-wise for women. Some programs do have higher percentages. Some types of programs, like a CS plus X, those actually tend to have a higher percentage of women participating in them, which is another reason that we've been looking at that as a possibility. There are some fields in engineering, because I work with the whole college, right? So there are some fields in engineering that actually are pretty good. Industrial engineering, bioengineering are both pretty good. Environmental engineering is pretty good. Those are fairly close to 50% men and women.
Nice.
Computer science, electrical, we're still pretty much at the bottom, down in the teens and 20s. Mechanical, aerospace, civil, those are getting better. Those are high 20s, low 30s in most of those programs. Um, there is still a lot of social stigma around what computer science is in this country, at least. It's not as true in other countries. Other countries have a much better balance of representation. But
You think? Okay.
I mean, if you talk to students from India, there is
Okay.
definitely more of a gender balance. And even if you look at international students from certain countries, not true from every country, but from certain countries, there's more gender balance. We still have a long way to go, and I do think a lot of it is the social view of what does it mean to be a computer scientist, right? Um, the thing I always bring up, I don't know if you ever watched The Big Bang Theory. Those guys were all physicists, but they did a huge amount of computing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's four nerdy guys, one cute, not smart girl, and then one smart, not as cute girl later on. There's just nothing that makes that attractive
Mm.
as something a female would want to do, right? Um,
Right.
and so we lack societal role models for really active female engineering. Now, there are some great things going on. There's the Grace Hopper celebration. I don't know if you've
Mm-hmm.
ever been able to go to that. That's a fantastic conference. The Anita Borg organization, AnitaB.org.
Yep.
So there are some groups doing amazing work, but there's still that disconnect between getting getting that 12-year-old who really likes computers and video games and thinks it's cool, and getting her all the way through to a 12th grader
Yes.
who did the math, who stayed interested in the technology, who then wants to go into the technical field. So a lot of that is that social aspect that happens during middle school and high school. It's not
Right.
capability, it doesn't have anything to do with who can or can't. It's ooh, I don't want to be a nerd. Ooh, I don't want to be a geek. Ooh, I don't want to sit in front of a computer all day.
Right.
Which are none of the things that we do, right? You talk to
Right.
people, you have meetings, you interact, you design, you create new things. Yeah, you write code to do it, but that's just your tool set, right?
Right.
Um, but that view isn't out in the world. Um, so it's interesting. The women in my generation are actually retiring out of industry, and industry
Not
is
just your generation. It's not just your generation. It's a lot. We're gonna talk about that too.
well, that's true, but we were a higher percentage, right, of computer scientists in industry, and we're now retiring out. I'm not, but they are, um, which means there's going to be some loss even of the representation that was in industry because of the old
Right.
timers retiring out. So that was
Yes.
a lot of
And
words. I hope that was okay.
no, no. Because I mean, that's you, Dr. Tiernan. You have to give a good detailed answer. But it was kind of going to the next question, but you kind of answered it. My other question was gonna be, why are young girl not interested? And I think you touch on it. It's the social aspect, but at
Mhm.
the same time, how do we make it interesting to them? One, let's find more role model. But the problem is having role model is again what I was gonna get to. When so we have the 12 to 16 arc that we need to work on, but
Right.
then They have to, because that's where you help me. Because I don't know how I didn't have the 12 to 16. I just stumble upon it. But then when you get to university, you have to have like great teacher. You have to have like great advisor to make you sustain. Because we also know that a lot of women and girls drop out, the first 2 years already. That's a challenge. And
Yep.
then, because I want you to touch about that, and then when they even do graduate and get a job in a 12-year career span, not everybody sustain.
Right.
We have a lot of women within 10 years, they're already ready to change. I have a lot of women that I worked with 10 years ago that were already ready to like quit for
Yep.
so many reasons.
Yep.
So it seems like at every stage there's a barrier there. So how
Yes.
do we, you the expert of retention, what do we do to keep women interested along the way?
I'm not an expert in retention. I wish I was, because we do a
But
better
you
job.
have done a lot of work, so
I have tried a lot of things, and some of it works. Yes. Um, a lot of what the research says, at least about retention, and obviously my focus has been collegiate, but
mhm,
a lot of what the research says is things like building community, making people feel like they belong, making them feel like their view is important. So if I have a group of 15 and I've only got 3 women, not making them feel isolated, but making them feel like, oh, fantastic. We have this point of view and this point of view, right? Um, and really overall for everyone is to make them realize how differences actually contribute to better results. The more different points of view you get from underrepresented and different populations, the better your final result will be. You're going to get more creativity. You're going to get products that work better for more people, that aren't limited, that don't make assumptions. Um, and that's really critical to being successful. And so trying to make everyone aware, because I mean there's tons of male advocates for females in engineering. It's not a case of all the boys are against all the girls. It's not that. There is still generational difference. I mean, when I first was interviewing for jobs right out of college, um, I actually I had switched to using my middle name in college, using Carter as my first name, because it was a more masculine sounding name. Um, I actually have another first name that I used up until college, and I remember going into interviews for jobs on campus with employers who'd come in, who I'd walk in the room and they'd go, because they were looking around for the guy Carter. And when they realized I was Carter, they had to do like this mental shift.
that's funny.
There was a serious expectation that you shouldn't hire, this was back in the 80s, you shouldn't hire a woman because she's just going to go off, get married, get pregnant, and quit. And so some of that, there's still a little bit of that exists, much less. But we know society overall discriminates against women. There's
Right.
many things in society. So it's not just about computer science. We maybe have it worse, but we're fighting against societal problems, right?
Right.
So building women's sense of self-efficacy and sense of belonging and sense of value are ways that help you, gird yourself for the challenge that you may encounter in a certain situation or not. I was very lucky in my first jobs at TI to have some very, very good male mentors who were very supportive of me and the other women on our team. And that was very helpful because there were certainly male, bosses who were not so great, you know.
Right.
Um, so I try in the little bit, that I get to interact with students these days, I try to help them think about their value, their worth, and how to create their community.
That's amazing. And the next question that I was gonna ask you, which you give us a little bit of preview of that, is what got you into tech to start? I'm very curious about that. And then what made you stay? But I think your experience at TI, having a good manager to really help you blossom was a good way. But what got you into tech to start with?
So my mother is an artist. She's a singer. She's an artist. She was. My father was an accountant. I grew up thinking I would be an accountant. I was good at math. I liked math. My dad's an accountant. That's what you do with math. And then in my senior year of high school, okay, this is a long time ago, right? In my senior year of high school, there was a new class, and it was called computer math. And it was taught by the same teacher who taught calculus. And I was taking calculus, and I signed up for computer math. And in computer math, we wrote programs to solve math problems. Now, here's how old it was. My first programs that I wrote were the language was actually a binary coded decimal language. So all our programs were written in zeros and ones. And then because this was a high school thing, there was one computer in the school district for all the high schools to share.
Oh
It was
gosh.
in the most centrally located high school. And so once a week, we would drive from our high school to there. And then we would type our punch cards.
Nice.
And we would run our programs and get our output, see how it went. And then after the fall semester, we switched from using binary coded decimal to using Fortran. And that was just like, wow. Binary coded decimal was sort of the equivalent of assembly code, really.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then, so we switched to using the high level language of Fortran. And I just found the whole thing fascinating. I'm like, this is so neat. Look at this tool, this computer that can solve these problems. This is fantastic. So when I was filling out my college paperwork, instead of choosing accounting, I chose computer science. And I went into it and enjoyed it. I actually did a business minor because I'd been planning accounting for so long. So I actually did a business minor with my undergrad. I finished my undergrad. I had a lot of credit coming in from high school, a lot of AP credit. So I finished my undergrad in 3 years and then went to work here in Texas for TI. And I'm
Nice. I never knew that story, so this is super interesting. You mentioned earlier something that I always talk about, diversity of thought. Because for me, building product, managing a software department, when I talk to quality leader or software engineer about diversity, I always tell them that the team that you choose that are designing the product, coding the product, should be similar to the people that are going to use it. That way they can really have create a same use case. Now let's shift gear and talk about, because you also mentioned about value, and I wonder if that's the answer to my next question. What would you tell to a young girl or any kids that are minority that might be interested in getting into engineering? What should be the value proposition if we're talking about marketing for them? What should attract them to go into engineering? Because especially these days, kids, I have a 13-year-old and a 5-year-old boy, and technology is like ubiquitous to them, right? So
right.
why should they still get into engineering? Not they know more technology than you and I when we were at the age.
So the really fascinating thing about computer science and all of the technology and engineering degrees is how much of a difference they make in our lives. We when we think about, the helping professions, the caring profession, we think about the medical, right? And absolutely, medical profession is that. But I'm sitting in a very comfortable, I'm a messy office, but a very comfortable air conditioned office in a very stable building, in a place with good transportation patterns, where the air conditioning and the elevators work consistently, where the water is good, where I don't have to worry about the power going off. All of those things make my life better. And when you visit parts of the world that don't have it, then you really know that. But when you
Right.
grow up here, you're you're so privileged you don't realize. And there's so the thing about engineering and technology is you don't notice it until it goes wrong, right?
Totally, yes.
So as long as your online banking is working properly, you just go, isn't this cool? I can bank online. And then as soon as it's not working one day, oh my goodness, oh, it's terrible. But all of that, making it work properly, making your space comfortable, making your spaces safe, that's what engineers do. That is
Mm.
our job, making your life better. And if we do our job right, you don't even notice. So that's the funny thing, is like making people notice so that they realize how they would be helping if they go into engineering. I mean, there's lots of things that are easy to see, like, SpaceX shot off a big rocket yesterday, right? That's really easy to see. It's like clearly engineering, lots of stuff going on. But there's so much engineering. I'm sitting here with two big screens and a laptop here, my phone, my phone has more power than the computers I was writing programs on in high school. Um,
Right.
all of these things that make our lives so enjoyable, here, especially here in this country in the developed world, are really truly so much provided by engineers and technologists. And if we didn't have those people, we wouldn't have this kind of lifestyle, you know? And in the parts of the world where they don't have these people, they don't have this lifestyle.
True.
And you look at, you know, um, so I am a member of an organization that provides services overseas, right? So I have a quote unquote adopted child overseas. And in their village, one of the things that the group's been working on through the adopted children process is providing clean water,
Right.
right? And that takes technology. That
Yes.
takes understanding where the water is, understanding how to get to it, understanding how to bring it where it needs to be. How do you pump it out of the ground to get it to the people, right? And even if it's not, hot and cold running water that we have in the auto instant hot water here, and, you know, that's technology. And bringing that technology improves their lives. So that's a place, again, where it's easier to see how technology improves your life. But our lives are so benefited by the things that engineers, computer scientists, and technologists do. We just don't see them until they don't work right, right? The power goes out in Asheville, you know, the power's out, been out.
Yeah.
The water's not clean, you know. Um, the structures that weren't safe enough in a flood, and floods are deadly, you know.
Yes.
But all of those things relate to engineering, and so we only notice them when they don't work, when they
Yes.
stop working. So if you make them aware, makes kids aware of how much engineering impacts them, then it becomes something that they can say, ooh, well, that's really cool. Wow, I'd like to make a difference in the world. I want to make changes. I want to be one who protects people. Then I
Right.
can see engineering and computer science as that role.
Yeah, I love the answer because for me, I always say that I got into technology or engineering because I wanted to change lives, and that's how I always try to relate my role, And when I was getting my first job, my grandmother asked me, what do you do? And I was working for a telecommunication company. It was very difficult for me to explain because we were working on a 5G, 4G, LTE and stuff like that. And I was like, we just work on the tower. But from that moment, the fact that I couldn't answer to her, I made it decision that every other job that I get, I have to be able to explain that to my grandmother, what I'm doing
Yeah.
technology wise, so she can see the impact. So I love that. I think that's an answer that I'm gonna save for myself when I'm teaching STEM to young kids. So now let's talk about things that are very current. And you mentioned, I love that answer, make people notice things that make their life easier. So we know that now we are like at the AI revolution stage, right? So AI is everywhere. What do you think about the new technology, AI and robotic? For somebody that have studied this, well, I thought I studied like 15 or 20 years ago, but you study it longer than me. So how do you feel about generative AI and where we are today?
I think generative AI is a wonderful tool. Um, and in general, that's how I always think about computers. They're tools, right? The question is, how do you use that tool and how do you use it responsibly? So, if you think about it from the standpoint of education, now, if you think about it from the standpoint of I have to write a business letter to my colleague, here's what I need to say, write me a letter. I'm like, that's a great use. You know, if you're not good at writing business letters, fine, have the generative AI write it, then you go back and review it. In the learning spectrum, there's a lot of fear. Oh no, they're not going to learn anything. They're only going to do this. So we as educators have to be creative and aware. So we have to be knowledgeable enough about what the tools can do to figure out how do we have students demonstrate their knowledge in a way that they can't be demonstrating it with the tool. So
Yes.
and that's hard in a lot of ways. So like I want students to write a program to do X. Well, ChatGPT can write programs. So how do I set it up such that either it's more trouble to tell ChatGPT to do it than to do it yourself,
Exactly.
or it's more interesting to do it yourself, right? Um, I try to think about how you can use it as a check and balance, right? So if I've written this, can I use ChatGPT as part of my checking, right? Now, I personally love the challenge, the puzzle of writing code. That for me is very fun, but I know not everybody feels that way. Even people in computer science don't necessarily feel that way. So, how do you use the tool in a way that accepts that they're going to use the tool? I mean, students are using it. We know that.
Right.
My colleague in English, when we first taught this class last semester, and they turned in, it was a middle of the term assignment. They turned in a writing assignment to her, and she's texting me going, "So what do I do when I can tell that every single one of them is generated by generative AI?"
AI.
You know, I saw that when I was reviewing scholarship essays. For a couple
Mm,
of our scholarships require essay writing, and it's like, how do you fulfill your moral, social, and something responsibilities? This particular scholarship has that particular prompt. And you could see they just took the prompt and they put it in ChatGPT and got answers out. And so I was actually looking for the ones that weren't as good.
right.
Those were the ones that were real, right?
Yes.
Rather than somebody just having ChatGPT generating it for them. So having things personalized so that you have to do it because it's personal, or at least you have to provide 95% of the information. Um, having things where you integrate it into the process and you ask them to show you, right? Give me your pseudocode. Give me the code you wrote. Give me the
Mhm.
code reviewed by ChatGPT. Give me, the output here, the output there. Show me your error messages. So, so that you accept that it's there and you use it as part of the learning process.
Yes.
Um, the other thing is you really have to start teaching more about trustworthiness and validation because ChatGPT doesn't always give you correct answers.
Yes.
So, if you're looking something up, just like if you randomly look on the web, you can find pretty much any kind of answer to your question. But
Right.
but what you want is true answers. You want answers with scientific validity. You have to learn that as a skill.
Right.
You have to have that assessment skill, and you have to be able to use it on what you get out of generative AI. And so teaching that too is another piece of what we as educators have as our job with this new technology. So,
I love it because I was doing a talk in West Africa, Cote d'Ivoire this summer
mhm,
to a group of women on AI, and there were half of the room were educator, and we went into this very heated discussion because they were totally against it, and
mhm,
I gave them a similar answer. I told them like this is already here.
right,
Your student are already using it more than you, so
right,
you can use it to prepare for your course. You can use it in a creative way, as you mentioned, but you have to use it as a tool to
right,
also teach the student, how to be better at history, because one of them was a history teacher, English teacher, Spanish teacher, but they were all like not even computer science teachers. They were just
right,
regular
right.
teacher, and they felt like students are now just bombarding them with answer from ChatGPT. I also
Right.
experienced it with one of the course that I'm teaching was QA and AI, and we almost like a scholarship. We asked students different question, why should we pick you for this program? And I found myself looking for the answer that was the least perfect, because I'm
Exactly.
looking at your level of English and I'm looking at the answer. I'm like, no, I just want somebody that say, I want to do this because it's my interest. Like, give me a human read, natural,
Yeah.
passionate answer. So
Exactly.
I'm naturally we just reverse what people are doing and using
Yeah.
this. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So that
I
covered like
actually,
how.
I'm going to throw in one. When I was looking at scholarship essays, I actually took my prompt and put it in Chat GPT 3 or 4 times to see what it produced. And then I used
Mm,
that to compare against the answers. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's Chat GPT. Okay, that one is. Oh, look.
that
Okay. So,
that's smart. I'll do that next time. That's another way. That's literally like reverse engineering to get
right,
the right answer.
exactly.
That's super cool. Yeah. So with AI, another thing is it make super efficient. But one of the things that I say is AI will never replace human being, right? So we still need to have our own value. And it's coming back to what we talk on this podcast, and you kind of like alluded to earlier, especially with women and girl or minority in tech. AI is not going to like make your life easier with all the discrimination that we are seeing, right? So you have to be confident. So I want to ask you, like, when you're talking to girls that are 12, starting 12, what do you tell them about their own confidence? How can they, be confident to stay the course in their study, or even college students?
So there's a variety of things that I might talk about. And I do talk about this sometimes with college students too, in terms of their
Okay.
confidence. Um, so one of the things that that make a lot of people feel less confident is they worry about what other people think,
Mm,
right? So
yes.
if I do this, if I say this, what will other people think? And so one of the things that I like to talk about is um, why does it matter? What impact does that really have on you? What somebody else thinks? What do you think? Does this piece of information you were going to express, is it valuable to the conversation? And getting them to recognize that some of their fear is related to stuff outside of them. The other thing is, what do they have control over? I have control over myself and my thoughts and my feelings. Now, we always have reactive feelings, but I have control over what I do with that feeling, right? I don't have any control over what somebody else says. And if they're stupid enough to put me down because I'm female, or I'm now getting to the age where I'm old and can get put down for that, that's really their problem. So if I can stand in my own confidence, then I can recognize that what I do, what I do has value, and somebody not valuing it is their problem, not my problem.
Love it.
That takes some maturity, and that's a challenge.
Yes.
But it's a goal to work for, right? It's something. So I know that I really started a journey of self-reflection and learning when I was in high school. And I was very negative about myself in high school. You aren't, you can't, you don't. And I started reading some self-help books in high school. And one of the things that for myself, that was a problem is that little voice that kept saying, you can't, and I started envisioning it as this little ugly man standing in the back of my head saying nasty things to me. And yes, it was me, but it was in my head. And when I went off to college, I mentioned that I changed my name, right? I changed to using Carter as my first name. The other thing that I did, whenever I heard the nasty little man in my head, I said, no, that's not Carter. That was so-and-so. That's not Carter. That was them. I didn't replace it. I didn't say, oh, you're amazing or gorgeous. I wasn't that brave. But the things that were negative, that were not real, you're so stupid because you made one mistake, right? Those kind of things. I said, no, that's not Carter. That's the previous identity. And I was at school. We were on quarters. I was at school for about 10 weeks for the first quarter, and then went home after that. And I was just religiously looking in the mirror in the morning, okay, I'm Carter. This is who I am. I'm building my new persona. And the negative things, when I recognized them, put them off over there. I went back home and I started getting called the old name, right? Because people at home, and all of a sudden I was like, because all this weight came back on me. But what I realized was I had taken it off. I had released and gotten rid of all that negative self-talk through my little exercise. Now, I changed my name, and I did that for a variety of reasons, but that was a piece of it. I liked my middle name better than I liked my first name. So it was a tool for me, but that worked. And it was so obvious to me that it worked. And I was so much more comfortable in myself. I was so much more confident in myself, just because I recognized something and then made a way, gave myself a process to change that. So we are so powerful. We are so mentally and emotionally powerful, and we don't know. Society doesn't tell us we're mentally and emotionally powerful.
Yes.
But we have so much ability to make our lives what we want them to be. And learning that and then practicing it, that little thing that I did, putting that into practice, that made a huge difference to me, because it showed me how powerful I could be with my own internal thinking, right? And my happiness and, how I felt about my success, all of those things improved when I got rid of a little negative voice. Now everybody has different things. I also worried a lot. And I still was worrying during college. I went to my first job and I met a friend and we were talking one day about something or other. And I was like, aren't you worried about blah, 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 blah? And he goes, oh, no, I never worry. I'm like, what? What do you mean you never worry? And he said, I don't worry. I said, okay, explain this to me. And he said, well, it doesn't build anything. It doesn't solve any problems. It wastes my time emotionally. It doesn't give me any benefits. So I don't do it. It's
Nice.
useless emotion. And when I notice it, I just stop doing it. And I was like, wow. And so I started trying to do that. And I stopped
Mm.
worrying. We have so much power, so much power. And learning to exercise that about ourselves gives us confidence. It gives us, this is what I want to do. I don't really care what they say about it. I don't care what the world implies about it. I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be, I'm not going to be Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. I'm going to be Mae Jemison on Space Shuttle, and that belief in ourselves is something we can teach and something we can teach young people. We can give
Yes.
them tools. Build your self-efficacy, build your grit, build your growth mindset. I actually talk about those in my intro class for the transfer students because
Nice.
engineers never talk about those things.
No, I didn't learn this in college.
Right. And so, it's only 1 hour, it's only one discussion, but I introduce it to them and I say, look, these are research-based tools that you
Yes.
can use that'll help you be successful, that aren't about how good you are in math or how good you are in anything else. It's about
Yes.
how you treat yourself when you fail or when you have a difficulty or challenge, and your
Yes.
belief in yourself that, yes, I can grow, I can learn. And they're tools that you can teach anybody. You can teach little kids, you can teach anybody, old people, anybody willing to learn. And
Yes.
it helps them learn about themselves and improve and grow. So when I think about what do I do, right? I talk about understanding your own personal power. And
Mm.
the tools like grit, self-efficacy, and growth mindset, that's just 3 out of a lot of different things. But those are 3 really easy to understand mental tools that there are documented ways. How can
Yes.
I get more self-efficacy? So one way
Yes.
to do it is to look at people around you who are doing what you want to do and say, wow, I'm a lot like them. They can do it. I can do it. That's
Yes.
actually a proven tool to help
Yes.
build your own self-belief, right? And so teaching people these tools for themselves can then help keep them lead them into, keep them in these technical fields. It really helps you
This
with everything, but it
this
helps.
is amazing because nobody teach us that, and the reason why I started the podcast was actually because uh, back in 2016, I was mentoring, or I was coaching a team member, that
Mhm.
wanted to literally leave the job. And I hired her, and she was like the rock star engineer. And then in less than 6 months, she wanted to just quit everything. And I realized that it was not her technical skill, it was really her resiliency and her confidence at the end of the day that was just plateauing. That's kind of
Right.
like the trailer of the reason why I started the podcast. Because then once I realized that, I started paying attention to so many other women and even men that I work with, that the confidence were the reason why they couldn't go from one level to another.
Yep.
It was not the skill set, it was not the talent, it was not the intelligence, it was literally their confidence. So for me, I always say confidence is it's the number one ingredient for your success. Everything else, you can learn, but if you don't get a grasp of like being having the grit that you mentioned. It's become very difficult. So I think you gave us a really good answer, but we love to know on the Up Your Confidence podcast, like what do you do to up your own confidence every day, Dr. Tiernan?
I so I don't typically have to up my confidence every day because
Good.
I have reached a plateau where I feel that I am good at what I do. Now,
Love it.
sometimes I'll get a new challenge, right? And I look at that as an opportunity. I look at that as, wow, I've never done this before. How do I do this? Right? Instead of going, wow, I don't have to do this. I'm scared of it. Because any problem can give both reactions, right? It's up to
Right.
us how we address it. So I
Right.
try to approach things with a growth mindset. Um, and, I fail. There are things I do wrong. There are things I screw up. And I say, okay, what did I do or didn't do that I should have done or could have done? I hate the word should, that I could have done that might have prevented that failure. And sometimes, honestly, there's nothing you can do. Sometimes things just happen.
Just learn. Mm-hmm.
And then if there is something I can learn, okay, what do I need to be doing so that that doesn't happen again?
Right.
Take the failure and learn from the failure. Because, I mean, if I wallow in the failure, I feel terrible. It doesn't help. Nothing moves forward. There's no benefit to wallowing in the failure, And a lot of us do it. Oh, a lot of us do it. We just like the drama, I guess, or whatever. But I try to really approach it with that growth mindset that says, look, okay, I failed. I learned something. Sometimes you learn what not to do. That's okay. That's learning, right? And I'm human and I make mistakes. I mean, you probably heard me say it in class 20 years ago. I don't know all the answers. I
Yes.
don't know that answer to that question you just asked me. So
Right.
we can go look it up. We can go find out. We can do whatever. But I accept that I don't know. I accept that I make mistakes and I'm human. If I need to apologize for something, I apologize for it. If I screwed up, I screwed up and I own it. And then I resolve to do better. So
That's awesome. I hope by age I'm gonna get to a point where I don't have to up my confidence every day. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Ten, and I am super grateful for your time and for all the wisdom that you partake on us. Some of them are research based, so we are like excited on the podcast to have like a researcher giving us all the nuggets. So we're definitely gonna share and more about everything that you're doing at UTA. Stay tuned.